Hello one and all, Puretsu Pizza Power here with another slice of WCW 1992 Dangerous Days, and we are ready to rock and roll, strut and stroll straight into the action here with WCW main event being held in front of 2,264 fine folks at the Georgia Mounting Centre, and those fine folks are being treated to some pre-show bouts before we get to the televised festivities. So the first of those pre-show bouts sees Van Hammer defeating Pat Rose in 6 minutes 53 seconds via pinfall. Van Hammer had an in-ring performance of 39. We definitely want to get that performance up for Van Hammer because he is a guy that I would like to use more of on television, and I do mean outside of the current tag team. We have him in the Music Masters alongside PN News. So yeah, Van Hammer, please get those in-ring performance stats up. Segment rating of 40. And moving on, we have Marcus Alexander Bagwell. He's another guy who needs to get his performance stats up, and he defeats Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker in 6 minutes 32 via pinfall. Not much heat, terrible wrestling. Marcus Alexander Bagwell with an in-ring performance of 37. And we move on to a six-man tag, and it is the Diamond Mine duo of DDP and Vinny Vegas making a trio tonight with Scotty Flamingo. And in what was a poor bit of action, really, they defeat the WCW Patriots and Arachne Man when Vinny Vegas pinned Todd Champion with a snake eyes at 8 minutes 21 seconds. So Scotty Flamingo, he's a guy that we haven't used on television yet, and we are testing him out in various combinations. I am toying with the idea of bringing him into the Diamond Mine because I just think the combination of him and DDP could work well. It's not an idea that's set in stone yet, so I'm open to suggestions in the comments. And Vinny Vegas, we continue to build him up, having him look strong. The performances of all these guys. Diamond Dallas Page, I was expecting him to be higher because he has been lately showing higher ratings in a lot of his matches compared to other people in those bouts, but everything pretty level there. Arachne Man with a 47 for DDP and a 47 for Vinny Vegas. Moving on to our final pre-show bout, and it is Sky Striker defeating Jumping Joey Maggs. Terrible bout here, unfortunately. Sky Striker gets the win, 7 minutes 58 seconds. Pinfall comes via a cradle pile driver. In-ring performance of 44 for Sky Striker and 39 rating there. And Sky Striker, we just want to build him up a little before we bring him onto TV. And then we open up the show with Tony Schiavone and Magnum TA welcoming us to the show before leading into a hype package that they both narrate. And it's a video that 100% confirms what we've probably already speculated, and that is the total package. Lex Luger will defend the WCW World Heavyweight Championship against Sting in the main event of the upcoming Superbrawl 2. So that match is signed, sealed and set. So we're in for a blockbuster of a championship main event at Superbrawl 2, so a 67 rating there. And moving along to our first televised action, and it is the Dangerous Alliance combination of the Cruncher Larry Sabisco and Stunning Steve Austin with Paulie Dangerously at ringside for them, and they defeat Johnny B. Bad and the Z-Man Tom Zenk in a decent match. 11 minutes 25 seconds of action comes to an end when the Z-Man is seeing Z's following a stun gun from Austin that leads to the pin. Paulie Dangerously did some good work at ringside. And then we have a 71 segment rating. Straight after the bout, Magnum TA gets some comments from Paulie, the Cruncher, and Stunning Steve Austin. And the subjects of discussion are the WCW World Television Champion Barry Windham and Gentleman Chris Adams. So Austin says that Adams had to follow him here to WCW, which is fitting, because the man who was once his teacher is now nothing more than a follower, and whatever Adams does, he will always be a step below Austin. But Austin says he's not content with that even. He wants to kick Adams down So he's going down the steps right till he hits the very bottom step, and he's out of WCW just as fast as he arrived, because this space is not big enough for the two of them. And Paulie, dangerously, he gives a smile, and then he adds comment to Austin, and he says he sees that fire in Steve Austin's eyes, and he says, and that fire he's got to resolve this issue with Chris Adams. He says it, even at this point in time, is greater than Austin's desire to regain the World Television Championship, because normally Austin would be going right for a rematch with Barry Windham, but right now nothing means more. He is laser focused on settling the score that should have been settled long ago in other territories, and that's to settle the score once and for all with Chris Adams in some kind of a match. If WCW has the guts to book it, some kind of a match that will leave no room for doubt, no room for a comeback. Something that will finally decide who is, at this point in time, in 1992, who is the better man between Steve Austin and Chris Adams. And dangerously says he looks into the eyes of Steve Austin, and it doesn't matter how many fans cheer for Chris Adams, it doesn't matter what the so-called wrestling experts think. He believes in the fire he sees in the eyes of stunning Steve Austin, and he knows Steve Austin is today and every day that's to come better than gentleman Chris Adams, because the pupil has far surpassed the teacher. And then, as far as the television championship goes, the Dangerous Alliance want that gold back in their camp. They crave it, but that task has been assigned to a man that proved earlier this week, when he crunched the left arm of Barry Windham, that he's more than up for the task, and that is the cruncher himself, Larry Zbyszko. And then Larry Zbyszko says that even though he knows he made Barry Windham feel pain throughout his left arm, pain that he will never forget, pain like he's never felt before, that was actually nothing more than a warning shot, because he wanted to deliberately leave something of Barry Windham intact, because he wants Windham to be ready soon, perhaps even for, say, Superbrawl 2, ready to put that television championship on the line, so Larry Zbyszko could bring that championship back where it belongs, and where it would still be, because it would still be around the waist of stunning Steve Austin if it wasn't for Chris Adams. If it wasn't for Chris Adams, Zbyszko says, that belt would still be around the waist of Austin. And Austin, if he wants the television championship again one day, he'll get it. But for now, while Austin takes care of Chris Adams, Zbyszko will take care of bringing the television championship back into the camp of the Dangerous Alliance. So everything gained heat there. Paul Lee did some great work improvising, and Larry Zbyszko also worked well improvising, so a good segment all in all there, 71. And then moving forth, we have tag team action. Bit of a risky one booking this. I kind of hivered and hovered on booking this, because we are, I believe, using Too Cold Scorpio in a televised match for the first time. We're definitely using Ultimo Dragon in a televised match for the first time. So in about that, had subpar wrestling and a little heat. Flying Brian Pillman and his new buddy Too Cold Scorpio. They defeated Jushin Thunder Liger, the light heavyweight champion, and Ultimo Dragon in 7 minutes 58, when Flying Brian pinned Ultimo Dragon with an air Pillman, and the match was designed to revolve around high spots. And Brian Pillman, he had a performance of 56, but the best performance of the match was from Jushin Thunder Liger with a 59. And while I kind of hivered and hovered on whether to put Scorpio and Ultimo Dragon on TV so soon, I just thought, why not? Let's just throw these guys into the fire and see how they do. And they are kind of backdrop players, because the focus right now is clearly on Brian Pillman and the light heavyweight champion Jushin Thunder Liger, because we know, especially after the segment on World Championship Wrestling, when Jesse the Body Ventura interviewed Brian Pillman, Ventura, he didn't mince his words. He had some very harsh comments for Brian Pillman, but was the body telling Brian Pillman anything that he didn't already know? That's the question. Because Pillman, he's trying to hold it together, he's trying to stay respectful, but things are clearly playing on his mind. He's clearly beating himself up over losing the light heavyweight championship to Jushin Thunder Liger, an outsider, a guy from another promotion, another country. And Pillman, he is getting that edge. There is that edge building up in Brian Pillman. Where that edge takes him, time will reveal. But when that light heavyweight rematch happens between Jushin Liger and Brian Pillman, it's going to be an interesting one, both for the in-ring performance and the psychological ramifications it has, especially on Pillman. And even though nothing is set in stone yet, you've got to think that that much anticipated rematch for the light heavyweight championship will be taking place at Superbrawl 2. So we move on to the next match. No, sorry, we have a hype video, and it is a hype video that announces that a tag team encounter pitting the Steiner Brothers versus the Enforcer Arn Anderson and Beautiful Bobby Eaton of the Dangerous Alliance is signed and sealed and set for Superbrawl 2. And to make the stakes even higher, the bout is confirmed to be one with huge ramifications on the tag team scene here in WCW, as both the WCW World and United States Tag Team Championships will be on the line. The winning duo takes all. So we've had two big matches confirmed for Superbrawl 2 on this edition of Main Event. Not only have we got the World Championship clash between Sting and Lex Luger 100% confirmed, we've got this brilliant announcement of a dual tag team championship match set, so that's very high stakes, and the tag team scene here in WCW may never be the same again after this one. So two great bouts announced here to look forward to at the upcoming Superbrawl 2. And then we have, much like the week before, another abysmal video segment, and I apologise for the fireworks going off behind me if you can hear them on the video, and those fireworks are certainly not to celebrate this segment rating of 19. So we see a video much like the one shown the prior week of a mysterious masked figure shooting out of space and flying down into the orbit of Earth. The video ends with the words "Sky Striker" taking to the skies, much like these fireworks outside of WCW, and Sky Striker is arriving soon. Sky Striker did not do well without a script to follow, even with pre-taping during multiple takes. Whoa. Less said about this one, the better. And Sky Striker, I think we need to get this guy into the ring on television fairly soon, because these video hype segments are not cutting it. Can only get better from here, surely. Moving on, we have Richard Morton, and he has Alexandra York in his corner, and he defeats PN News in a bout with decent reaction from the crowd but terrible wrestling. The finish comes at 8 minutes 22 seconds, pinfall via a cross body, and Richard Morton had an in-ring performance of 40. Would desire something a little bit better than that from Morton. Alexandra York did some good work at ringside. The match cooled the crowd a little, 39 rating overall. And straight after that, we go into tag team action. And it is Greg Valentine in his first action since coming back onto the scene in the way he did at the Clash when he helped the Tailor-Made Man defeat Big Josh. So we have Valentine teaming with the Tailor-Made Man here to take on Junkyard Dog and Bill Kazmaier. Decent reaction from the crowd, but subpar wrestling. The Hammer, Greg Valentine, and the Tailor-Made Man, they defeat JYD and Bill Kazmaier in 9 minutes 11 seconds when the Tailor-Made Man pinned Bill Kazmaier with a flying forearm smash. The match was designed so that the wrestlers could go out and try and steal the show. 49 segment rating. JYD was really off his game, and the best performance of the match was 53 from Greg Valentine, and the Tailor-Made Man was just one below him with a 52. Then we have a 54 segment rating, and to close the show, the legendary Lance Russell steps into the ring to get some post-match comments. Russell asks Greg the Hammer Valentine what his motivations are for coming to WCW and aligning himself with the Tailor-Made Man in the manner he did so at the Clash. The Hammer says that as a 2-time US champion, a 4-time tag team champion, and not to mention his championship accolades in other territories, he knows what it's like to operate on a higher brain pattern and as part of the higher class, just like the Tailor-Made Man does. With great gifts comes great jealousy and disrespect, says Valentine with a clear chip on his shoulder. The Tailor-Made Man reminds me so much of myself, says Valentine. He's high achieving and underappreciated. In my career, spanning years now, as you know, Lance Russell, I've never ever received my due respect. So not only am I back on the scene here in World Championship Wrestling to make sure I finally get mine, but I want to make sure the tailor-made man gets everything coming his way also. Because when I look at the tailor-made man, I look at the future of the sport. He's something special rather than the common trash that's out there right now. Just like the trash we both cleaned up at the Clash. And I'm talking about Big Josh. So we get a bit of an explanation there as to why Greg Valentine not only returned to WCW, but he chose to align himself with the tailor-made man. So yeah, we've certainly got an alliance set with those two. And that storyline did gain heat, by the way, and then overall rating for this show was a 54, and the show benefited from having quite a wide selection of angles. So decent stuff overall, especially given that we didn't feature many of our bigger names in matches, so it wasn't disastrous. So yeah, I'm alright, I'm happy with that one. So let's get ready to rock and roll into more action. It is now time for the 29th of January 1992 edition of WCW Power Hour, and it is being held in the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. Before we get to the TV coverage, we've got about 4 pre-show bouts, the first being Arachnaman and Too Cold Scorpio taking on the team of Scotty Flamingo and Diamond Dallas Page, and it is the team of Flamingo and DDP that pick up the victory here. Subpar wrestling in Little Heat. They defeat Arachnaman and Too Cold Scorpio in 6 minutes 47 seconds when DDP put Arachnaman away following a diamond cutter. And Arachnaman carried the match in terms of in-ring performance, and DDP was really off his game in this one. Standout performance was a 57 from Arachnaman. I think we need to consider repackaging Arachnaman and doing something of note with him, because he is he's delivering some solid ratings for us overall lately, and it's not gone unnoticed. Moving on to our next match, and we have a pre-show bout that doesn't have much heat and terrible wrestling, and not a surprise really given who we've got in it, because we've got Big Josh and the returning Aligante. It's the first time we've used Aligante, and they defeat the duo of Bob Cook and George South in 5 minutes 44 after Big Josh pins Bob Cook. And Aligante had an in-ring performance of 35. I was expecting worse, in all honesty. Big Josh with the best performance of the match at 44. Aligante, he is somebody that potentially could slot into a storyline idea I have. So he is somebody that I am going to use and just see how he fares. That might spark dread into the minds of some people I know, but let's just see how he does. And then we have, fresh off his betrayal of Thomas Rich, we have Richard Morton accompanied by his manager Alexandra York, and Richard Morton defeats Sonny Trout here in a match that doesn't have much heat and terrible wrestling to boot. 6 minutes 30 seconds is the match time, and Richard Morton puts Sonny Trout away with his bulldog knee drop, which he's now calling the service termination. Alexandra York did some good work at ringside, a 37 segment rating overall. And then in tag team action, the Fabulous Freebirds take on the WCW Patriots, and they defeat the WCW Patriots in just over the 8 minute mark when Michael P.S. Hayes pins Firebreaker Chip following a bulldog, and the match had decent reaction from the crowd, but the wrestling was subpar. Jimmy Garvin seemed off his game, but the Freebirds had all of the perks of a team that have the chemistry that they have, excellent tag team chemistry and the tag team specialist bonus. Firebreaker Chip and Todd Champion also got that chemistry bonus as well. And the performance of the match, well, it's shared really, a 54 performance from both Garvin and Hayes. And moving forth after that 51 segment rating, we have our TV show. And it opens with a video package hyping up the World Heavyweight Championship clash that is coming up. That was announced on Main Event as being official, signed, set and sealed. Superbrawl 2 will see the total package Lex Luger defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Sting in a match that is not to be missed. So get your pay-per-view orders in now for Superbrawl 2, folks. Do not miss it. And if your pay-per-view provider doesn't carry it, you complain, you get onto it, because you do not want to miss this one. It's going to be a blockbuster of a match. So after that 67 segment rating, we move on to the Ross Report, a live edition that sees JR have 3 guests. He has Gentleman Chris Adams, accompanied by his wife Tony, and the WCW World Television Champion, Smoking Barry Windham. And first of all, we have Chris Adams making comments about Steve Austin. And he says when it comes to Paulie Dangerously, saying that he sees fire in Austin's eyes, he says he doesn't see nothing in Austin's eyes but fear of karma coming to collect. And karma is coming in the form of Gentleman Chris Adams. He says Austin had a really grave error of judgment when he thought he had left the past behind him. He thought he was never going to see Chris Adams again. Adams says it was only going to be a matter of time before it was time for him and Austin to settle the score. And he says that he once considered Austin his greatest pupil, but Austin went down a dark path. And he says the good thing is that everything Austin knows is not everything Chris Adams knows, because Chris Adams didn't teach him everything. And Adams says when Austin talks a big game like he taught this past episode of Main Event about wanting a match that leaves no it leaves no cloud, it leaves no confusion, it settles the score once and for all between the two of them. He says, will Austin put up when it's time to shut up? Because Adams proposes a match that will have no outside players, no shenanigans, no room for Dangerous Alliance members to get involved. He challenges Austin to meet him inside a steel cage. Then we move on to Tony Adams, and she says she fully supports her man, a real man of character, and that's Chris Adams. And she says just like Adams, she saw the fear in Austin's eyes, because Austin knows that the time has come to pay for the sins of his past. Then we move on to the World Television Champion Barry Windham, and he's clearly in pain. His left arm is in a cast given what Larry Zbyszko did to it recently. And Barry Windham says that he is determined, he's medically able to compete. The arm wasn't broken by Zbyszko, and he knows that Zbyszko, that was a calculated plan by Zbyszko, because he knows Zbyszko wanted him in the ring. And he says Zbyszko better be careful what he wishes for, because Barry Windham, when he won that television title, he promised he would be a fighting champion, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to fight. And he says sometimes when you've got a wounded dog, that wounded dog becomes more dangerous than ever. And Windham says that he knows the danger Larry Zbyszko poses, so that's why Barry Windham is going to bring every ounce of fire, every ounce of fight that he's got in him to make sure that the television title stays around his waist, not just for himself but for the fans of WCW, because after finally getting this television championship away from the Dangerous Alliance camp, the last thing he or the WCW fan base want is that belt falling back into the hands of a Dangerous Alliance member. So Windham says he will give everything he's got and then some to make sure he overcomes Larry Zbyszko. And if Zbyszko wants that title match at Superbrawl 2, he's got it. So the performance of Jim Ross was good in that segment, a 56 segment overall rating. And then we have a decent match with Big Van Vader, who has Harley Race with him at ringside, and he defeats Van Hammer in 7 minutes 42 after a Vader bomb leads to the pinfall. Vader has an in-ring performance of 72, very impressive, while Van Hammer is way down there with a 37 in-ring performance, and he was off his game in this one. 57 segment rating. And then we move on to some good stuff here with a 71 segment rating. Following the bout, Cactus Jack appears from the entrance curtain and he sprints towards Vader, firing a flurry of punches Vader's way as the caught-off Vader falls down onto the rampway, with Cactus Jack falling atop of him, still throwing punches like the wall man that he is. Vader manages to regroup and land some blows to Cactus Jack as both men regain their footing. But even though Vader has the clear power advantage, Cactus Jack stays in the fight, trading blows back and forth with Big Van Vader, until a fleet of security rush onto the scene and get between both men. Vader pushes through a few of the security guards. He still wants to fight Cactus Jack, and Cactus Jack, he's raring to go too. But Vader's manager, Harley Race, he convinces Vader to calm down and save the fight for another day. So this feud has gained heat because this is part of the whole story with Ron Simmons and Mr. Hughes too, and Cactus Jack showing that he is not intimidated by Vader. He'll bring the fight to Vader, and this has set up something in motion for a potential one-on-one match between these two, given all of the issues that have been going on surrounding Vader and Cactus Jack and Mr. Hughes and Ron Simmons in recent times. So a very good segment there. I had high hopes for that one and it delivered. Then we have a poor match. The Natural Dustin Rhodes defeats Hollywood Bob Holly. Hollywood Bob Holly, he's on a pay per appearance for us. This is the first time we've used him, I believe. And Dustin Rhodes gets the pinfall victory, 7 minutes 17 seconds. And Dustin Rhodes had a performance of 61, while Holly had a 35 performance rating, and he debuted an egomanic gimmick, and it got an initial rating of great. So Hollywood Bob Holly, he is somebody who is working for Smoky Mountain Wrestling currently. He is somebody that we will use now and then on our cards as an enhancement talent and just see how he does. So after that 50 segment rating, we have an interesting occurrence because Harley Race walks out to ringside and he approaches the victorious Dustin Rhodes. The two men then have a conversation that the camera cannot pick up all the wording of. All we can make out is Harley Race saying, "There's no harm in hearing out your options." Harley Race is then seen offering a clearly untrusting and uncomfortable Dustin Rhodes what looks to be a business card. But Dustin refuses to take the card and he leaves the ringside area. And Harley Race doesn't take kindly to the rejection, and that's clear by his body language. So is Harley Race trying to scout Dustin Rhodes for what he has dubbed his power play? His faction of wrestlers, and we know at one point Harley Race was looking into acquiring the services of Cactus Jack. Cactus Jack rejected Harley Race, which led to consequences. So Dustin, is there going to be ramifications of this? Because it looks very apparent that Dustin isn't interested in buying whatever Harley Race was trying to sell. Strong segment rating there with a 70. And then we have a 6-man tag to close the wrestling on this show. It's our main event match, and it's a good one, with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat teaming with the Steiner Brothers to defeat the Dangerous Alliance trio of Ravishing Rick Rude, Beautiful Bobby Eaton, and the Enforcer Arn Anderson in 15 minutes 40 seconds, when Ricky Steamboat pinned the United States champion Rick Rude following a diving crossbody. The match was designed so that the wrestlers could go out and try and steal the show. During the match, we had Wendy Richter at ringside countering the interference of Medusa, who was there on behalf of the Dangerous Alliance. And Medusa did manage to attack Ricky Steamboat, but Wendy Richter countered. She managed to distract Rick Rude, and she also managed to get into a brawl with Medusa on the outside of the ring. So we've got dynamics going on there. The tensions between Wendy Richter and Medusa are brewing. Paulie Dangerously was also at ringside and he did some good work. And Ricky Steamboat and Wendy Richter make a good pairing. They seem to play off each other well. Beautiful Bobby was off his game in this one. And the best in-ring performance was from Ricky Steamboat with a blowaway 91. And Arn Anderson did well as well with a 70. And Rick Rude had a good performance as well with an 81. The Dangerous Alliance storyline, Let's Get Dangerous, that's gain heat, brilliant. 68 segment rating, and we go from that to a strong show closer of a segment with a 76 rating. So following the bout, Lance Russell enters the ring to get some comments from Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Rick Rude, says Steamboat, you've underestimated my worth for a shot at your United States Heavyweight Championship. But these great fans, they didn't give up on me. They never doubted me or my worth to challenge, despite any setbacks I may have faced. And that was before I just pinned you clean for them to see right here tonight in this very ring. I've not seen anyone else do that to you recently, champ. And speaking of being champ, why don't you be a man about being a champ? Step up and give me the opportunity to pin you again, but this time one-on-one with the United States Heavyweight Championship on the line. Still watching at ringside, poorly dangerously, he tries to calm down a now irate Rick Rude. But anger gets the best of Rude. He snatches a microphone from ringside and he tells Steamboat he's on. And he better enjoy getting one up on him tonight, because that's the last time it's ever going to happen. So, we don't know when it's going to be yet. We can presume it's going to be Superbrawl 2 perhaps, but it's set. Rick Rude will be defending the United States Heavyweight Championship against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and that should be one awesome clash when we get it. So once again in that segment, Ricky Steamboat and Wendy Richter, because she was at ringside still, they are a good pairing, and that whole storyline with Rude and Steamboat is gaining heat. Brilliant way to close the show. And a 68 overall rating, and the show benefited from having quite a wide selection of angles, so decent stuff there. Very happy with that one. And thank you very much for watching this episode of WCW 92 Dangerous Days. We will be back for episode 8 as we get ever closer to Superbrawl 2.